guest is meteorologist Dan Henry, who recently joined the SNN weather team. Welcome to the SNN family.
Thank you.
Yes,
I appreciate it. It's great to be here.
You have been doing a fabulous job, and I'd like to start by saying you and the rest of the team, both Justin and Marco and everybody else who supports you, did a wonderful job during the coverage of Irma. So we really appreciate all your diligence, being on the lookout for all of us here.
Well, thank you. Pulling 12-hour shifts, working 6, 7, 8 days in a row, bottom line is it's not really work to us because this is why we do what we do.
That's
we do it to keep people safe, and because we love it. We love tracking storms. And I have great teachers in Justin and Marco to help me learn the ropes. Second week here, we had historic, hurricane in the Atlantic, so trial by fire.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, yes. Welcome to the Suncoast. Yes. So let's tell our viewers a little bit about you and where you're from and how you got here.
Sure. I'm from kind of all over the place. I lived in Michigan till I was about 14. Actually went to high school right here in Sarasota.
Interesting.
I'm a Riverview High School grad. Go Rams.
Yes.
Yes. I played in the tennis team there. Big tennis player. So Sarasota was great in that respect because, how can you ask for better weather, other than when it's hot and humid, of course.
Yeah. And are we coming out of that soon?
Yes, actually, it really gets a lot cooler right around the third week of September usually. It's like a faucet that turns on right in the early part of June.
Excellent.
And then turns right back off in the late part of September.
All right,
so.
Okay. So how did you become interested in meteorology?
Well, apparently, I didn't really like coloring books when I was a little kid, and I would draw hurricanes.
Really?
Like freehand draw, with the red for the highest winds and then the orange and the yellow.
And where did that come from? That was it? All of a sudden did you see a hurricane when you were growing up on TV? Did you watch the forecasts and you thought it was a cool picture?
Yeah, a Michigan kid being interested in hurricanes, it doesn't necessarily make sense right off the bat. But they always fascinated me, I guess just because they're so, there's so much interesting to me about a hurricane, how it forms, why it forms. Just everything about it has always been interesting to me. So,
can you tell us a little bit about that? How do they form? How do they start?
Well, so first you have to start with some sort of initial disturbance, a tropical wave of some sort. Usually they begin as a low pressure system over Africa, some area of uplift. So, the way that a low pressure system forms is you get the sun beating down into the lower part of the atmosphere, and that disturbs the air because of the energy transfer. And eventually, because the universe wants to equal itself out energy-wise, high pressure and low pressure, interact, and then eventually the winds start to swirl around a low pressure center.
Now, is this over water, though?
It can start over land, too.
It can.
And oftentimes we see tropical disturbances starting over the continent of Africa, and the second that they move over those warm waters of the eastern Atlantic, that's when we see those areas of investigation, tropical depressions, and then obviously what happens then is it becomes an engine essentially that runs on heat, something called the Carnot cycle. So C-A-R-N-O-T. If you're really interested in the details, it's called the Carnot cycle. But so essentially the hurricane draws in warm, moist air, and then the air tries to go toward the center of the hurricane, but is forced up in the atmosphere. Changes in energy occur that basically result in this, the air never really makes it to the center. So it's sort of like a record spinning with the amount of energy,
And that's where you get that dead calm in the center because there's nothing there, right? It's like a vortex of some sort.
Yeah, there's actually sinking air, subsidence in the eye of the hurricane, and it leads to, calm conditions. In the past, people would think that the storm was over when it was only halfway over. And of course, now we have satellite imagery to show us all the, nooks and crannies, but yeah.
What's the most difficult part for you in forecasting?
Oh, well, just how easy it is.
Oh.
No, it's very difficult to forecast, obviously, because the atmosphere has, seemingly infinite number of particles in it. And every single one has a different temperature, a different movement, and different parameters as far as where it's going, when it's going to be there. And we could never sample every single point. And that would be what we would need to do to make a perfect weather forecast.
But there's millions of them?
Billions.
Billions of them.
Yes.
Okay.
An unfathomable number.
Okay.
Even with our supercomputers today.
Yeah.
You know, at this point, you know, we've kind of bridged the gap as far as, you know, really getting over the hump. You know, say 25, 30 years ago, weather forecasts were just way less accurate
Yes.
than they are today. It's where we get all the adages about, oh, well, meteorology is the only job you can be wrong half the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, with computer models now, we figured out the forecasting. We figured out the basic equations that relate temperature, pressure, and other things like that. So it makes my job a lot easier.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, it's still very difficult, especially when you get 7, 8, 9, 10 days away.
Yeah.
So to make a 10-day forecast, so another thing that helps us is we now have a lot of climatology. So that's basically study of climate.
Yep.
And then also knowing what the average is. So
A lot of factors that come into play to figure out what you do. Well, so you moved back here. Let's finish up with this because we're almost out of time. You moved back here from Michigan and went to high school, and then you've kind of stayed in the area, went to college.
yeah, I went to college up at University of Florida. And then while I was still living in Gainesville, I was at a station there. That's where I got my first job.
Okay. And now you're here with us.
Now I'm here with you again.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and we'll see you around. Okay.
For sure.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dan. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Suncoast FYI. We will return after a short break.